Hey, I'm Mark,
And I am Craig.
and this is Songwriter's Tales. And today, Artist Spotlight Series. This one's different. This one's a little different. We're going to talk about the blues, man.
The blues, baby.
The blues.
Got the blues.
Got a Christopher Wyze on. Really cool story, Craig.
Yeah. Christopher, we didn't know a whole lot about Christopher. His publicist got in touch with us and sent us what he's been doing. And we said, let's get him on like right now. So he's on right now. And for all of you blues enthusiasts, all of you people out there who aren't even sure what the blues is, you need to listen to this guy. This man has passion and knowledge of the blues.
Well, and he's got a record coming out that shows you how passionate he is about the blues.
Yeah, he does.
And he's all about it, and I think you're going to be all about it.
For sure. So what do you say about it, Mark?
I say, let's do it.
Cool too.
Very good.
Hey, it's Mark. We are back with a cool guest here, Mr. Christopher Wyze. Craig, why don't you give the man a little bit of love and talk him up a little bit, and we'll get into this.
Be happy to. Christopher, great to see you, my man. We're glad you're here.
I'm glad you're there, and I'm glad I'm here with you on your show. So
we're looking forward to this. You know, Mark said. He said when he just came on, he said a cool guy. And that word cool, when you think of cool, man, when I think of it, I think of the blues, baby. That's what I think of. That's cool. Okay. Yeah. And that's what you're all about. And that's what we're going to have a conversation. And anybody who's tuned into us right now is either a blues lover already or they are about to become a blues lover. And we'd like to thank, of course, Scott Sexton, our wonderful publicist that works with you. And he turned us on to you. So what I always like to do is just say, man, rather than me telling all about you, why don't you tell us about you and kind of tell us where you are first and give us a little background.
In Indianapolis, Indiana, and that's going to tie back to a little bit of a project I'm working on right now.
Awesome.
But I'm right here in the middle of Indiana, and I've lived in Indiana my whole life. I grew up in Southern Indiana. I had some Southerners said, hey, if you say Southern something, you can qualify for being from the South. So I'm from Southern Indiana, so I'm also from the South.
That's true.
I've lived in Indianapolis for almost 50 plus years. So I'm not a newcomer in that regard, but I'm a relative newcomer to music. I wrote my first song about 4 years ago. That was it. And I was a business guy. I was an advertising guy. I wrote for newspapers, magazines. I've written 5 books. I have another name that I author things under, but my music name's Christopher Wyze. And so I've been a writer. I got steeped in a crucible of writing for deadlines, a daily newspaper, a monthly magazine. The ads go out. We don't miss that. I own the advertising agency. We don't miss deadlines. We just don't. So when I got maybe told I needed to write songs by my producer, mentor, and friend, Ralph Carter, who used to write songs with Eddie Money and performed with Eddie Money and was his tour musical director, he said, dude, why aren't you writing songs? You need to write songs. And we're going to do an album together. And by golly, we did. And we're still making music together. And so it started for me. I think I wrote my first song in 2022. Started for me as a guy who already knows how to write on command. And I don't say that, with like, look at me. It's just, man, you don't survive for 45 years in newspapers and advertising without getting your work done and being able to write on command. And not only just write on command, but it can't be crappy either. It's got to be pretty good. And it's creative writing. Well,
so I can relate.
People go, how can you write songs? You don't know anything. It's like, well, now hang on here just a minute. I can tell stories. And that's the name of my band, Christopher Wyze and the Tellers, because we tell stories. We're tellers.
Very
And
cool.
so that's me. We've had 2 albums out here. Our first album, it's gotten play everywhere in the world. It's done really well in Europe. You know, that's a little bigger blues market than the U.S. is now. And it's done really well. That's Stuck in the Mud, our debut album. It made it into the top 50 of the top 200 blues albums in the year it came out and stuff like that. So we followed it with a live album because I had no idea the album was going to go anywhere. I just wanted to make a record with Ralph Carter. And because we said we would. And so we did. We went to Muscle Shoals and made a record. And then, holy crap, people listened and it kind of took off. And then it's like, well, I got to do another record. It's like, well, I've only written 12 songs in my life. Well, what do I do now? Well, we do the live album of the 12 songs I already wrote. So then we did live in Clarksdale. So,
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah, I did a live album. We recorded in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and that came out a year ago-ish. And now we're on to a new project where it's cover songs, and I'll be recording a new album of my originals with Ralph Carter in Muscle Shoals here in November. So, man, we're just making music, and I work with a producer in Nashville, Jim Riley, to record stuff. I don't know if you know Jim, but he's been around Nashville for a long time. He had a band called the New Dillons and Plowboy Records, and he wrote for Curb, and he kind of got me started in music. It's a crazy story, and introduced me to Johnny Phillips with my record label, Big Radio Records, which is part of Selecto Hits. He's Sam Phillips's nephew. So through
Sam.
Jim Riley, he made the connection there. And all of a sudden, I've got a record deal. I don't even have a band name. I've got a record. I've got a record deal. I got to make up a band name. We got to get going. And now I get to talk to Mark and Craig. So it's been a crazy 4 years.
Well, I want to go back. Tell us about getting into the music, because you just kind of, you laid that crumb out there, and now I want to bite into it a little bit. You said that he got you started in music. So, I mean, obviously you're a writer. I'm a writer too. I've got a day job. I've been a copywriter for 30 years.
That's so awesome. Let's talk copy when we get some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know what I'm talking about then, man. You get to write what they tell you to write, and now I got to write a song. So I'm going to write the damn song.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that, so you're kind of a unique story because you didn't start out in music. And I mean, even when I was copywriting for 30 years, I was also writing songs. So, and I learned how to write lyrics from one of the top copywriters out of Atlanta. She ended up being a co-writer of mine, and
it's great.
It was so intimidating to try and write lyrics with her because she was such a great writer.
Yeah.
And, but I kind of just soaked it up like a sponge. But so Craig's been a musician, his entire life. So tell us about starting, jumping into the world of songwriting. Even though it's writing, it's still different.
Yeah. And I was almost 65 years old, guys, when I wrote my first song. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I grew up with music. I was a singer and performer, in high school, and there was always the Mills Brothers on the hi-fi and Broadway musicals. And my sisters were playing the Beatles and, the Beach Boys. And then my brother comes home with a B.B. King record and Long John Baldry from England. And it was all happening. And I sang in a choir, and we were good. I was probably okay, but the rest of the guys were really good. We would sing the Messiah with an orchestra, and I was a first tenor and sang a second tenor and a baritone and a bass. So I've sung every part of the Messiah. And so I go to college. I learned to be a journalist, and I just listened to music for a long, long time, and that was it. And then I owned the ad agency that I worked for many, many years, and I worked too damn hard, and I probably had some crash and burn in there, and I came out on the other side of it, probably a better person. And then not too long after that, I had a guy. I was at a church dinner. It was a wine dinner, of course. That's why I was there. But he's up playing on stage acoustic, and I go up to him. He takes a break. I'm like, man, that's really good. And I said, I love your stuff. And I said, I dig what you're playing. He's playing the Beatles and stuff like that. He goes, oh, are you a musician? And I don't know what possessed me. I said, yeah, I'm a musician. Because I sing. That's what I do, man. That's what I know how to do.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
he's like, well, what do you do? And we talk. He goes, well, let me get a glass of wine, and why don't you come up on stage? Let's do a couple of those that you mentioned. And we did. And I joined his band as his front man. This was in 2007. So for 15 years, I sang in his blues band, man. I
That's cool.
sang everybody else's blues songs. I picked up the harmonica, started learning that. I went to Mississippi to learn the harmonica. That's where I met Ralph Carter in Clarksdale, Mississippi, ground zero for the blues.
No doubt.
And then he told me, you need to write songs. You can do this. And I'm like, come on, man, you're just making that up. But, I know who he was, and he's an honest man. And I had to take him at his word. It's like, you think I can do this? I'll do it. And I was reading the Wall Street Journal one day after I'd come back from Clarkston, Mississippi. I'm a business guy. And there's a story in there about a new studio in Muscle Shoals. This guy buys this old mansion. He remodels it. The band can live there for the week. They cook for you. And I snap a picture of it on my iPhone, and I text it over to Ralph in Ventura, California. I said, hey, man, here's where we're going to record our record. And he's like, well, when? And I was just kind of kidding. And I called him, and he's like, write the songs, damn it. And I said, okay, man, you're on.
Love it.
Let's get together in Clarksdale, Mississippi in 8 weeks. I'll bring the songs with me. And I went down there with about 15 sets of lyrics or so, maybe 20. I don't know what it was. And he said, we'll make them into songs. I just write the stories.
Mm-hmm.
I don't start with the music. I start with the copy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I learned through Ralph, we sat there for 3 days on a picnic bench at the Shack Up Inn in Clarksville, Mississippi, picnic table, and did little iPhone demos. And before I even went down there to write them, I had booked the recording time in Muscle Shoals. I was a complete knucklehead. I don't even know what I was doing, but I trusted Ralph. He said, don't worry about that. I produce him. He's a producer. He's got a studio in California. He said, don't worry about that. I'll audition the session guys. You just show up, be ready to do what you do. You know what you're doing. You do what you do. And wow, that happened fast. And our first album came out in 2024. I mean, we recorded it in 2022. And then I had this album, and it's like, what do I do with it? And I met a guy through the Nashville Songwriters Association, Jim Riley. He was a mentor in that mentor program they have. And they listen to your songs. And he's like, I had a finished album. And he said, well, you got any songs? I said, yeah, I got like this album. And so I sent it to him. He's like, what? He goes, I would buy this stuff. He goes, well, what can I help you with? I'm like, what can you help me with? I said, I want a record label. He goes, oh, no, don't go there. Don't do it, dude. Do it on your own. I said, no. I want a record label. He goes, oh, crap. Okay, I'll introduce you to Johnny Phillips. And Johnny Phillips with Selecto Hits. Sam founded Selecto Hits. They were a distributor. They still are. They were stuffing records in envelopes in 1960, and they're still stuffing those things today, but most of it's digital. And so they handle all that for me. They have a couple little record labels, and he said, sure, we'll put you on big radio records. And then away we went.
I love that. Okay, I'm jumping in.
Sorry,
Great.
Craig.
I love that. So I made notes here. I'm a note maker. When you see me over here,
me too. We're writers. Mark's over there. He's a writer.
We got to write, man. There's a couple things. First of all, you talked about writing on command, and Mark and I totally get that.
Yeah.
Mark and I write at Zach Brown's Camp Southern Ground.
When I watched your show, I heard about that. It's like, okay, that's on my list of things to go look up too. It sounds super cool.
Well, the cool thing is what we learned, and I'm going to tell you, Mark, and you and I have talked about this so many times, and I'm saying this for the songwriters out there that are listening to our show that are trying to figure out their craft. And it is a craft, and it's something that you have to work at, unless you're a Bob Dylan or somebody like that just God dropped something in your pack that nobody else has. But most of us have to work the craft. And what happened with us, Christopher, on this was a lot like what you're talking about. We go into a room with a half a dozen to 10 veterans that we've never met that have come in from all over the United States that have stories to tell, that are trying to work things out in their life. We have 3 hours with them, and we have to get to know them and create an entire song that makes sense, that is singable, performable, and then perform it at the end of the night in front of all the rest of them. And I'm going to tell you, and Mark will vouch for this, that's when we became bona fide songwriters. I mean, we had already had published songs and everything else, but brother, that just enhanced. So I love what you said. Now, I do want to say for our listeners, when we say blues, are we talking Delta blues? We had a good friend of mine and Mark's, Alan Shacklock. He's a producer out in Nashville. He's an English guy. You might have seen his podcast, but he was talking, of course, about Albert Lee, and he was friends with Albert Lee. And so there's that kind of blues there. You got B.B. King, you've got the Delta blues, you've got the Texas, you got Roadhouse blues. Give us an overview of what blues are, and maybe even kind of tell us where you fall within that spectrum, just to kind of help everybody, because it's a big wide.
It's a broad genre. There's no
It is.
question.
Well, and it swaps in. There's country blues, and there's bluegrass kind of blues,
Right.
and blues, and jazz blues, and
Yep.
and rock blues. And
Yep.
I mean, it's American music. That's the first thing. Okay, it's American.
Right.
You know that. You guys know that. And I from best I can tell, when I started going to Clarksdale, Mississippi, and now I've probably been there 15 times. I even filmed a documentary film about it because I just am so enamored of that area and the music and what happened and how all this stuff came to be. But I think it's music about things that are tough that we deal with in our lives. So that's kind of where it first starts. The people who created it, I mean, they were working 6 days a week, no doubt. And maybe Sunday they got to play music out on the front porch and so forth. So it's stories about that. And we all know it, when you take time to immerse yourself in music, you kind of forget about everything.
Yeah.
Including your troubles.
Yeah.
But I think the folks who created this blues music said, well, why can't we sing the songs about our troubles too?
There you go.
Well, they did. And they bleed into gospel. I mean, my goodness.
Mm.
So what is the blues? I think it's just human stories about things that, we've all been through that maybe aren't the best. And it's Shakespeare. Shakespeare didn't write anything original.
No.
Those were all other people's stories.
Right.
And so drama, comedy, pathos, all that, it's all part of the human experience. And I'm not maybe answering your question, but then it goes into, where are you? Okay, you're in Appalachia. You might have a cigar box guitar, and that might be what you
Right.
play. You might have a harmonica. You might be like Leroy Carr and Scrapper Blackwell, whose songs that we've done on this new album. There was no percussion. There was no drum. There was no, it was just Leroy and Scrapper in front of a microphone and scribing it into some wax disc or something. And they got 3 minutes and you better hurry. And we don't really want to do another one. Okay. So see if you can get it right. I mean,
Yeah.
That was city blues. And then here I am in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I didn't know about this, but where did Louis Armstrong record his first record? Jelly Roll Martin, Bix Beiderbecke, Indiana.
Wow.
Mhm.
Richmond, Indiana, at Jeanette Records. And why? And a lot of the black musicians came to Richmond, Indiana to record their music in the blues because no one would record them in the South. No one's going to record these guys. And so they came up north. And, some of them kept going. They went to Chicago, and that became the Chicago blues.
Yeah. Big time.
And then, I don't know. It's wild how this music came together. And I've gone in Richmond. It's all gone now. But there's a Walk of Fame, and there's Jelly Roll Martin, and there's Bix Beiderbecke, and there's Louis Armstrong, and all these people that recorded here in Richmond, Indiana, and maybe Leroy and Scrapper in Indianapolis heard that music. I don't know, but they aren't Delta guys. They didn't come up out of the Delta, and yet they got the blues and they understood the blues.
Mhm.
And yet one of their songs, Kokomo Blues, Kokomo's about 40 miles from here,
Mhm.
written by Scrapper Blackwell and recorded. Robert Johnson heard it and he made it into Sweet Home Chicago. It's the same song by Scrapper Blackwell. And it wasn't a big hit for Scrapper, but it sure as the heck was a big hit for Robert Johnson and the 150 or 200 people who've covered it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
But
sure.
that's a Scrapper Blackwell song from Indianapolis, Indiana. And so we're just rambling here, guys, but
No.
the blues is everywhere around us in different feelings and styles and even different instruments.
Well, there's a tie-in. You were talking about people want to sing about, different things, but why can't we sing about our feelings, about, what we're going through? And one of the things that we see all the time, that we talk with producers, songwriters, is the healing power of music, man. And, just getting it out, talking about it, and just talking about how crappy you feel. Somehow or another that works in there. I was going to say, do you two know what's on the, what's going to be on the tombstone of the blues players? You know what they're going to put as the epitaph?
Mm-mm.
No.
Boom, boom, boom. Didn't wake up this morning. Boom,
Okay.
boom, boom. Sorry.
Woke up soon this morning.
I had to do that, brother. I'm sorry. Mark, you had something you were about to say.
I was just going to say,
no.
I was just going to say everything that you just described, Christopher, is, and I mentioned this to Craig before you were on. It's like, I think the thing that resonates with people about the blues, and I would say a lot of the country artists as well, because I think those two are like very close cousins.
I agree.
And is the authenticity.
Mhm.
And it's, I mean, record labels have marketing departments that make people look better and put him in a white hat instead of a black hat, blah, 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 whatever. But, Craig and I cut our teeth writing songs trying to get Nashville stuff going 30 years ago. And, when a Randy Travis came on the radio, you knew exactly who it was. And
love it. Yeah.
And I think the blues, it's funny that I see the blues as kind of the same way. It's like this, people relate to it because they don't feel like this is not, someone's not just singing something that someone handed them to sing. These people, and it's almost like the Negro spirituals too. They came from slavery. I mean, these songs they were singing these songs when they were in the fields.
And think of the rhythm of that music. That's something that really captures, I wrote a song called Cotton Ain't King. And I said, Ralph, in the studio, I want to hear that shovel. I want to hear that pick going into the soil. I mean, can you imagine doing that 6 days a week for about 12 hours a day and hearing that exact sound?
In 110 degree heat.
Yeah, in the heat. And I mean, it just,
but it brought out the realness. It brought out, I mean, because it wasn't born from, hey, I've got an idea for a song. It was born from, things that were passed down and I think you mentioned Robert Johnson. I mean, you can listen to him and it's like, you can hear the authenticity. It's not, like you said, you got one take, you better get it right, and they did. And anything that wasn't quote unquote right was still right because it was them. It wasn't, I can do that better. Let me try and sing that one more time. No, it was.
Mark, what you're saying is 100% correct, because when all that started evolving and coming about, they weren't doing it to make records and make money and become stars. And that's the difference. And the one word of soul, man, that they got soul. And as a professional guitar player, I've been making my living, and I think you and I are about the same age, Christopher. I'm be 70 this month coming up, and
closer.
Yeah. And I've been playing professionally since I was 17. And what we have learned is to make every, tune that guitar, man. Make sure that guitar is in tune. Make sure every beat is right on the money. And then when electronic drums came out and sequencers, and everybody's focused. But back then, you listen to the old blues players, and I'm talking to you listeners out there. Right now, I'm preaching to the choir on the podcast, but you listen to those old blues players, you're going to hear them so out of tune. You're going to hear their tempo up and down. They don't give a flying rip because they're not trying to impress with their finesse. And another thing that they did that used to drive me crazy until I started to appreciate the beauty and the rawness and the realness of it is they'd be playing along. All of a sudden they'd add an extra beat
or an extra measure. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Like, for me as a writer, I got a song I did on this Naptown Blues album. So I got 10 of Leroy Carr and Scrapper's songs.
And we want you to talk about that.
Oh, that's fine. But some of these songs, okay, I get it. I got the pattern. And then Leroy sings like extra 7 lines of stuff. Not 3, not 1.
Right.
I mean, like, not 8.
Right.
7.
How do you feel that as a trained musician? It's like I can't force myself to do that.
No, it's really hard. And, the funny thing is, because I'm not steeped, I'm steeped in writing. I mean, I'm steeped, man. I'm done. I mean, I'm as steeped as I'm going to get. I keep trying to get better, but I ain't going to get much better. But music, that's been different for me. And so I don't have that. And so I've learned, just forget, just make the song, man. Serve the song, make the song, make the story.
Hey, this is Mark and Craig with Songwriters Tales, and we need you to like,
subscribe,
comment,
and share.
See you soon, folks.
See ya. Let's do it.